Abandoned Blues is a photograph of 50 or 60 pairs of faded blue jeans that have just been washed and are laid out on a dusty ground in a market in Accra in Ghana. The work comes from a bigger story that I've been working on called Dead White Man's Clothing, and it's basically about the second-hand clothing trade in Africa and this huge billion-dollar industry that it is. And I'm fascinated by the fact that things that the first world discards ends up in a market in the middle of nowhere. The jeans just kind of depicted for me the kind of excess, because there are so many of them lying in this dust, the excess of it is what fascinated me. And the fact that at some point people in the towns near this village are going to be wearing these jeans that someone has cast off. The image is, for me, that is what I enjoy about it, is this kind of very, very sensual image taken in a place that really isn't sensual or beautiful in any way. It's taken in an extremely dark and dusty market, but somehow these clothes, this dress, is kind of it's being restored to its former glory, basically. It's a beautiful, beautiful purple dress, complete with sequins, that is finding a second life in a place that whoever owned it first would never, ever have imagined it to. And there is actually something quite beautiful about that. I think what fascinates me is that I think in the first world, and I use that term quite lightly, or quite generally, we don't often think about the clothes that we wear very often. You go to a shop, you see something beautiful, you buy, you wear. Probably in a lot of cases, you only wear once and get rid of it. Whereas in Africa, people think about what they're buying a lot more carefully, largely because there's less money, I guess. And so choices are more difficult. And I'm fascinated by the fact that clothing that it means nothing to us, but it takes on a whole new meaning in another world. So a T-shirt for us that is a 5-kilometer fun run in Hyde Park is a kind of a freebie that's given to us when we do the 5K run. That T-shirt becomes a completely different thing. It becomes a kind of sought-after item in another country or in another place, in another time. And I'm fascinated by that. One of the images that sticks in my mind, and it's something that kind of inspired me to carry on working on the story, I shot a part of the story in Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, and it was a Friday afternoon prayer time, and 50 or 60 men kneeling on prayer mats praying. And in the middle of this, one gentleman got up, and he was wearing a T-shirt that said, "Welcome to Kansas." The story has been going on for quite some time, but my process has changed quite considerably. In terms of research, it's something that's quite difficult to research because it all happens within an informal economy. A lot of it's word of mouth in terms of where might be the best place to go next. But I would very much like to do the next trip would definitely be to Kenya, specifically to Kibera, which is the big township or the big kind of slum area within Kenya. You can find these markets, you can find this clothing in pretty much every country in the world. So the world is your oyster in that sense. It's really just a case of finding the biggest markets or where there are interesting stories within them. But you really could do it anyway.